Good evening, Shortcuts. Stephen here with video 1 from the upcoming selection on February 15th. This selection focuses on audiophile releases, some jazz, blues, and soul. So, some things I've never had before, and some really interesting records with some fascinating history to have a quick chat to you about. So I'm going to start here. So the Vinyl Me Please record club has been going for quite a few years now, and they release a series of special pressings for records that they believe are an essential component of a record collection. And I've got 4 here. All of these are out of print presses, and they're all sealed. So this is their version of Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix by Phoenix, French rock band. The classic Soft Bulletin by the Flaming Lips. The even more classic Africa Brazil by Jorge Ben from Brazil, 1976. And some grime hip-hop / punk by Slow Tie called Nothing Great About Britain. Now, I have my own copies of Africa, Brazil, Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix, and the Soft Bulletin, which I'm going to quickly show you now. The Slow Tie record is quite a political and charged record. The rock band Slaves puts in a guest appearance. It's really grimy and grungy and dirty beats. As always with Vinyl Me Please, the vinyl is fantastic. But I'm going to show you my own copies of the other 3, just to give you a sense of what you get in a Vinyl Me Please package. So they have their own obi strips, and these pressings that they delivered way back in the day also came with a cocktail that they would suggest you make while listening to the record. They all come with an exclusive artwork. In this case, this is a kind of an interesting interpretation of Jorge Ben. Think samba funk, but with a kind of a almost punky edge. And the other reason that I love this album is that it includes some of the greatest songs about football, soccer that you've ever heard, which is unsurprising, as it's a Brazilian legend singing about some of the greatest players that's ever lived. Now, the brilliant thing about Vinyl Me Please, you get a book that you can read. It's kind of like, think of it as glorified listening notes that talk you through the time and the place of the record and why it's meaningful. Always on super heavy vinyl, and in this case you can see kind of the glowing yellow, which is kind of similar in some respects to the next one that I'm going to show you, which is the package for the Soft Bulletin by the Flaming Lips. Probably their breakout record, produced by David Friedman, who had this amazing role in the 90s of records that he produced, but had this kind of almost celestial feel. The keyboards and the electronics had an uplifting feel. Now, what I love about this particular release is you get this 3D image of the cover as like kind of like a lenticular sleeve, as well as an art print by Wayne Coyne, the lead singer. It's a double LP. You can see that it's similar colorway to the Africa Brazil, but man, does it pack a punch. A spoonful weighs a ton, and Feeling Myself, Disintegrate. The bass lines and the thundering kind of Zeppelin-esque drums really do smash down in that, and so there is a reason why this record was in their top 10 ranking of all of VMP's pressings through the years, of which there are hundreds. And then this one, which I think is maybe more of a surprise. This is the more recent Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix, French band Phoenix. Actually, one of the more surprising live bands I've ever seen. I saw them in the Enmore, when they were touring this album, and they were incredibly good. You can see here, it's kind of like a silver foil, really, beautifully produced. The artwork is kind of like a little bit of a somber view of them on their tour, but the listening notes are great. The record itself, it's got a bit of it shows itself off on the table. But what I will say is it was sourced from the original master tapes, and Triple M mastered, and it sounds unbelievably good compared to the original vinyl release. Absolutely smashes it. So all of those sealed Vinyl Me Please pressings I cannot recommend highly enough. Anyway, on to something different. This is a Japan-only release, and one of the more special records that I'm going to talk about tonight. This is Second Night in Japan by the John Coltrane Quintet, the last quintet that he worked with. This was recorded the year before he died, and it's legendary, and there are many reasons. In Japan, at that time, John Coltrane was the most popular musician on the planet. When he arrived at the airport with his wife, Alice Coltrane, who played piano with the quintet, and she is a delightful piano player, and Pharoah Sanders, who also played saxophone as part of the quintet with Rashid Ali on drums. He's one of my favorite drummers. They were met at the airport with thousands of fans. It's almost Beatlesque. And they were so popular that they crammed 17 concerts into a 16-day tour. And he did some interesting things. He went to Nagasaki and he spent some time at the memorial there. And as a black musician, having that type of relationship with jazz fans in Japan is pretty phenomenal. And so this is a triple LP of the entire second concert that they played. Now, this is an adventurous record, avant-garde record in many places. Interestingly, one song that traverses side 4 and 5 of the record. It's recorded in mono. The soundstage is so particular. You can tell where the 5 musicians are, and kind of the modal beats where each integrate themselves into the next solo, and how they expand and deliver where the outcomes is really something else. It's almost kind of a pathological mathematics, and it kind of is. It's kind of mesmerizing. And as a box set, it's right up there with anything that he ever did. And read the blogs, and you'll find that many jazz aficionados consider that to be an essential release. And yeah, it's one I'm quite proud to have available tonight. Now, a quick run through of some others that are coming up. This is a Filipino funk band called Blackbuster, and the record's called Hassle, and it is a bundle of fun. Really, really interesting musicianship, and yeah, I think someone will have a lot of fun listening to that. Let's have a look at some blues. This is a Japanese pressing of Crusade by John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, who in 1967 London was probably one of the coolest musicians on the planet. The band that he played with at this time featured luminaries such as John McVie, who went on, of course, to play in a few famous bands in the 70s. But I think probably the most interesting musician to play alongside Mayall on this is a Japanese first press, is this album of the first recordings of an 18-year-old Mick Taylor, who went on to incredible acclaim playing with the Rolling Stones, and I think arguably in the greatest Rolling Stones lineup with their greatest ever records, the likes of Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street. I love this sleeve. This is Lucille, B.B. King's guitar in the window with a young boy staring at it wistfully with the album title, Take It Home. This is a late 70s B.B. King, so it's more kind of pop blues oriented with an absolutely steaming horn section. Yeah, that is a great record. It's not, it's not the upper echelon B.B. King, but mid echelon B.B. King still wonderful. I really like this as well. So this is the Brothers Johnson. Look at them looking a little bit Lenny Kravitz. This is 1975. So George and Louis Johnson, discovered by Quincy Jones. Well, Quincy Jones was on tour. You can see here, Quincy Jones presents. He loved these guys. Both played guitar, and he surrounded them with a bunch of the best jazz funk musicians at the time, the likes of Dave Grusin and Billy Cobham, and others who many of you in the club will know well. Some amazing cover versions. I think the cover version of Come Together will probably have you laughing out loud. It's an exuberant record, and you can kind of hear where Quincy Jones was going. I mean, they went on to have several big hits, probably the most famous being Strawberry 23, their cover version of that beautiful Shuggy Otis song from the late 60s. Have some soul. This is James Brown. So this is part of the Japanese portrait series where they really did bring the absolute cream of the crop. James Brown songs to the mix, the likes of Sex Machine, King Heroin's Super Bad, which is an amazing tune, Soul Power, Give It Up or Turn It Loose, Hot Pants 1 and 2, It's a Man's World, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. Brilliantly recorded on the Polydor label. Unusual, only ever released in Japan, never released anywhere else. Kind of like this. You've seen this before. Every time I see this, I grab it. It's awesome. It's the Otis Redding Memorial Collection by I think it's RCA Records. It's just a phenomenal recording. Everyone who's bought it just loves it. Now, this is a more kind of unusual. The only time I've ever had this. There were a slew of posthumous releases by the Otis Redding estate, because he had a bunch of stuff in the can when he passed away so young. Part of the reason I love this one is His backing band were Booker T and the MGs, and listening to Steve Cropper play guitar with Otis Redding, you know, it's just one of the greatest listening pleasures there is. Just two more to go in tonight's jazz, blues, and soul selection. So this could, of course, be classic rock or jazz. This is Gaucho, Steely Dan's somewhat infamous late 70s soul jazz crossover. A year in the making, maybe more, maybe 2 years, 42 musicians, and you know, busting the bank, creating this album that sounds so meticulous, where everything is crafted and just, you know, almost mosaic like in terms of how it's put together. And it went on to win the Grammy for the best engineered record, which is weird. I mean, the Grammy, man, there's 100 awards and they're all pretty much meaningless. But an award for engineering, well, you know, you're never going to sell a record based on that. But the thing is, it's got these really perverse lyrics and these melodies that are kind of hypnotic and a bit strange. Everything's a bit left of center. It's a 30-odd record, and it's weird that it became such a massive hit, but there it is. And so Gaucho, an odd, weird, yet somehow brilliant album. Hard to explain. And then this, you know, you guys are probably a bit tired of hearing me talk about Blossom Dearie. I just think her blend of kind of girly vocals and incredibly melodic piano playing, it just tickles me, and I find her quite the compelling listen. You know, Once Upon a Summertime by Blossom Dearie gives you a sense of time and place. This is about Sunday afternoons when you just need some background music, kind of to take the edge off. Recorded on the Verve label, and sounds really kind of deep and full on the player, even though it's somewhat light music. You know, how can it be anything but with a cover like that? But it's lovely, and so there's a time and a place for something that's just lovely. Well, there's tonight's audiophile jazz, blues, and soul selection. Hopefully there'll be something there that'll tickle your fancy when the list comes out 9 p.m. on Wednesday the 15th. Thank you very much for watching. Any feedback, let me know, and please subscribe. Thanks.